Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 358. I am so excited to have back on the show GreenSmoothieGirl, Robyn Openshaw. She was on the show in episode 178, where she launched her amazing book called Vibe, where she illustrated 200 high-frequency foods. And I was blown away. In fact, that interview was the sort of the straw that broke the camel's back that made my husband go vegan. And he was the biggest meat eater. He only ate meat. Like, he would almost never eat vegetables. And after our interview, he just went, I'm never eating meat again. And so that was almost a year and a half ago. And he is never touched a piece of meat. And he feels amazing. And he just, within days of not eating meat, he went, I didn't know that vegetables taste so good. This is amazing. Why didn't you tell me? I can't believe it. And so he's so happy. So I just have to thank you for transforming our family's health. It's been wonderful.
Well, that's pretty funny because that was not at all the intention of writing the book Vibe, but I have been eating plant-based myself for 25 years. Not entirely vegan, not 100% vegan, but probably 98 to 99% vegan for decades now. And you certainly can't avoid the issue of food if you're really going to look at your own vibrational frequency and whether you're vibrating at higher or lower frequencies and why. You cannot avoid the fact that the plant foods are high frequency foods and the animal products and the processed foods are extremely low frequency, like close to zero.
Right. That really surprised me because I grew up in a household that believed you needed meat for strength. You needed meat for energy. And if you didn't eat meat, you'd feel fatigued. And that was the belief system that I was raised in. And so this idea of eating only plants was like, well, where are you going to get your energy from? And it's so funny because it's totally the opposite. Meat makes me feel sluggish and slow. And even when they do live blood cell analysis, you see after eating a burger or something, a bloodstream is slowed down to almost like a sludge. Whereas when we eat mostly plant-based or all plant-based, that we have more energy and more vibrance. But you, in your book and in our interview, you talked about how there are scientists who can, with all this equipment, can now prove that our bodies will vibrate at a higher frequency when we are feeding it the foods that also have high frequency. And that really leads into what we're going to talk about today, because this concept of how can we protect all of our 37.2 trillion cells in our body from all the frequencies that we're being bombarded by. And I know that since you came out with your book, you've really dived into this topic. I'd love for you to share with us what's happened in the last almost year and a half since you wrote your book. What kind of things have you been researching and discovering?
The book Vibe talked about a variety of things that we can do to be grounded and to discharge negative energies. And, a sort of a side topic or a part of that you've alluded to here. And that's pretty cool that your husband's now eating a lot more plant foods and letting go of dead low frequency foods. We can talk about the positive side of that, which is the things we can do to ground ourselves and discharge. But, I've really been taking a look at energetic pollution. And that's what you're having me on to talk about today is what are the things that we're doing that inadvertently, they're not even all that hard to get rid of or to mitigate, but what are some of the things that we're doing because we live in this electronic age that are accidentally zapping our energy? Because, as you alluded to, you've been raised to think that you got to have enough protein to have energy. Well, first of all, there's protein in plant foods, and we don't need as much protein as many of us have been led to believe. That was mostly marketers in certain parts of the food industry who led us to believe that we got to have these quantities of animal products to survive. And most people throughout history have had very little animal products. In fact, they go whole entire seasons where they have no animal products if they're, living close to the land and they're not getting their food in a grocery store. They're actually having to grow it or hunt it. And so energy is really a different construct, especially when you go to more quantum energy studies. And so you're now super clear on the fact that you want those 37 trillion cells to be vibrating at even a slightly higher frequency. It can mean a massive difference in how you feel. So what we're talking about today is electromagnetic frequencies. These are these chaotic and even radioactive frequencies that interrupt the high, normal, healthy frequency of human organs, human organism overall, but also if you get down to a granular level, each of those cells. Like they can't really fill the measure of their creation if they are getting zapped all the time. And so I've been really researching this idea of energetic pollution, or what they call in Europe electro smog. And in Europe, they're way ahead of us in many other countries. I mean, a lot of the published research, there's over 8,000 published studies now of the negative health effects on human beings and other life of these chaotic frequencies. And Russia and Europe are way, way, way ahead of us in acknowledging the problem, in documenting it, and in protecting their citizens from it. And in Europe, they are sometimes referred to as EMF refugees. There are people who are, and there's lots of them here in the US too that haven't yet figured out that their problem is that they're really they're really tipped over by these chaotic frequencies. And some of us can be in a yoga room where there's 40 people with their phone on, with Wi-Fi emitting, and they feel fine. They don't feel different. But there are a lot of people, a significant minority of people who don't feel well when they're in these high risk situations. Or we could talk about smart meters, and we can talk about the kinds of light bulbs that you have in your house. And we can talk about how much dirty electricity your outlets in your home office or in your bedroom are emitting. And each one of these there's a pretty easy fix for all of these, because there's now an industry coming out saying, okay, we got to protect people from this. Mm-hmm. We put people in this situation where we're about to be in 5G. And when we go from 4G to 5G, and by the way, what your phone says that you're on 5G, that's actually just marketing. That's a misnomer. Some of the cell phone companies, I think Verizon and maybe T-Mobile, say that on your phone. That does not mean that you yet have 5G. Almost nobody has 5G. But when 5G rolls out and every 3 to 4 homes in a neighborhood have one of these transmitters, we're gonna multiply the amount of EMF that we are exposed to by 100 times. Mm-hmm. So those are the kinds of things that I'm having conversations with people about now, and with my own audience about now, because more and more people are becoming aware. Yeah, I don't feel good when Wi-Fi is on in my office. I don't feel good when when I haven't filtered the bleeding electricity in my bedroom. I don't sleep as well. I don't feel so good when I am interacting with blue light and devices all the way until I go to bed at night, or I don't fall asleep, things like that. That's where I've been in the last year and a half, Ashley.
Figuring it out. Well, what I think is interesting is the healthier we eat, the healthier we clean up, we clean up our lifestyle. Some people complain that because they're now more sensitive. And it's like when I ate, basically, I don't know, 10 years ago, I was eating from the dollar menu at whatever fast food joint. Like this is a big transformation last 10 years for me. But when I ate that way, if I had had one clean meal, I wouldn't have felt a difference. I always felt bad, right? And then all of a sudden I made that shift. I cut out gluten and dairy and, switched to organic food, and one change at a time, I noticed that I was having these huge shifts and feeling better and better and better. And if I'd have a day where I went back and ate, something that was one of the foods that I'd cut out, in the past, I just feel bad all the time. So I was habituated. But now that I'm eating clean, if I eat one meal that's not clean, I really feel it. I just feel horrible, I feel like more horrible than I did in the past. And I think it's because we get so sensitive, we get so clean, it's actually a good thing because our body, we're now listening to the symptoms of our body. Our body's having an easier time telling us this is good, this is bad, go this direction, don't go that direction. And so when we start to get really sensitive and realize, hey, when I turn the Wi-Fi off, I feel better. And when I'm in an office building and I look at my phone and there's 50 Wi-Fi signals, I'm feeling like off. We start to notice. It's when we start to notice, we realize that we've spent so long becoming in tune and in touch with our body and becoming cleaner and cleaner with our health, that then our body starts saying, hey, EMF is affecting me. And I didn't think I was ever sensitive to EMF until I started interviewing a few people about it. Sal LaDuca is one of the first people I interviewed about EMF. He's an electrician, really high up there, and he talks about how there'll be clients of his who have insomnia, and he'll come in and he'll look around their bedroom and say, no wonder you have insomnia. You have all these things plugged in by your bed. You're basically you're sleeping on a giant electromagnetic coil. And he unplugs everything from the bed, and for the first time in 20 years, they can sleep. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like because it's invisible, it's like, when I went to your website, which we have an easy link for Learn to Health listeners to remember, it's learntohealth.com/EMF. You have a video where it kind of talks about how sunlight, we experience it, it's warmth on our skin, it's wonderful, and then we get a sunburn. And the sunburn is like our body reacting to this radiation that we don't really see. We see everything's well lit from the sun, but we don't see it as a danger, right? Until we started getting sunburns. And so everyone's walking around with cell phones. And because if we got sunburns from cell phones, it would be so much easier to go, oh, okay, the EMF is affecting me. But the sunburn we're getting from from all the electromagnetic radiation, all the devices we're carrying around, it is leading to lowered immune system, cancer, causing the mitochondria to not produce energy properly, and so it's affecting us negatively on a cellular level. And I almost wish it was a little more blatant. I wish people would go like, oh wow, like a sunburn. I wish people go, oh wow, I really notice a difference, because then it would be easier. But I guess people have to just lower EMF exposure and then realize like, wow, I am sleeping better, or I have more energy, I have more mental clarity. When you started lowering EMF in your space, what kind of health benefits did you notice?
I cannot say that I'm a particularly energetically sensitive person, but I will say that I had a similar experience to what you said, Sal talked about. And I like to think of in terms of a metaphor for what you were saying earlier about how the more you cleaned up your diet and lifestyle, the more finely tuned you became, where very minor things that you would have never noticed back when you ate a crap diet, now you do notice. I like to think of it as that's because you're a Ferrari now. And you used to be a Yugo, and a Ferrari is a more sophisticated instrument, and you're gonna notice those minor changes in the environment. I also think, though, kind of on the flip side, that people who are energetically sensitive are a lot of functional medicine doctors are theorizing this, because I ask this question every time I interact with one of them. And I know lots and lots and lots of them, like you, I interview them constantly, that people who are energetically sensitive may be people who have an immune system that's pretty taxed. And so they just kind of can't take the additional insult or the additional impact of energetic pollution on top of everything else they're dealing with. Like maybe they have had a lot of heavy metals exposure in the past. Maybe they ate a lot of foods containing glyphosate because they haven't been eating organic, and their genetics combined with high levels of glyphosate in their bloodstream and their organs, really it's a bad mix for them. But for me, the one thing that I did notice, even though I don't think that I personally am very energetically sensitive, and then I have another one with my child, but is when I took my tri-field meter in. or actually it was my green wave meter in. And the free EMF action plan that you mentioned, we've set that up on Ashley's site, learntruehealth.com/EMF. And this is just the quick and dirty. Here's the top 10 things that I think you should address that I think you'll see a significant impact on your health, your quality of life, your energy, your ability to sleep. There's the top 10, and then there's another 6 that would be like, okay, once you do those, and most of them are inexpensive, some of them are even free, then go on to do these next 6, because you never know which one is really bugging you until you address them one at a time. But it kind of lets you just chip away at the problem. But when I plugged my green wave filter into each electrical outlet, I found that my office was over 150. And keep in mind that anything over 50 is in the dangerous zone. No, I'm sorry. My office was over 400. My bedroom and my son's bedroom in the basement, where we had tested everything in my whole house for where the sources of dirty electricity and chaotic frequencies, or EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, were coming from. And I could tell you some of the surprising sources of EMF that we had to address. But I stuck this green wave filter into the wall and found that my son and I were living with more than 3 times a safe limit of EMF. And when I got those then filtered, the outlets that were over 50, I put a filter in. So GreenWave also sells filters, and on the EMF action plan that you can get at learntruehealth.com/EMF, I'll link you to where they have a discount to get packs of them, because I wanted to filter, my whole house, and I had a larger home. When I plugged those in to the outlets that measured over 50, I slept all the way through the night for the first time. Well, I did. I think it was 3 or 4 nights in a row. I slept all the way through the night, and I had not done that once a year. I had not done that once a year for decades. And it's not that I don't have terrible sleep problems. I really kind of solved my sleep problems years ago in terms of can't fall asleep, can't stay asleep. But I would just wake up during the night. I would wake up and I might be awake for 5 minutes, might get up and go to the bathroom. I might be awake for 15 minutes. But I do that once or twice a night. And once I got the dirty electricity in my room cleaned up, I slept straight through the night regularly. But I did it like 3-4 nights in a row. And I was like, oh my gosh, this has never happened to me in my adult life. When I filtered it in my son's room, he told me he was able to focus in school better. He was an A student, but he struggled. He would tell me, he would say the words, "Mom, I can't focus." And he was very, very clearly ADHD, and his older brother was too. So I'm sure there's some kind of biological component there. I don't know where he got it, because his father isn't ADD or ADHD. I'm not ADD or ADHD. I don't have any trouble focusing. But all 4 of my kids, my girls are ADD, my boys are ADHD. And he told me he was able to focus in school better. He didn't feel like his brains were scrambled eggs anymore. And so that was really, really nice. And it was such a simple fix too, to test the outlets using a meter. And we tell you how in the free guide. And then to just put a filter in and clean up the ones that were bleeding too much dirty electricity.
Can you explain, like you said, it was 400 coming out of your outlets in your office. How far out is that field? Like if you're sitting 2 feet away or sitting 5 feet away, or is that like 400? I don't know. What is it, volts, or
Yeah.
how do they, so that the 400, that's the dirty electricity that's coming out, is it amplified by everything that's plugged into the outlet? So then that field expands into the room. So like how far away do you have to be to not experience the dirty electricity? Can you just explain a bit more, like paint that picture?
First of all, I see different experts who've tested it say different things about keeping things plugged in all the time. Like you should just unplug your flat iron, ladies. You should unplug things that might sit there plugged into the wall. I see people contradicting each other on that. So I can't be super definitive about whether it's worth your time to keep things unplugged. However, I think it's really, really clear that some of the electricity is coming out into the room and getting in the way. Now, what the radius is, with your cell phone, you don't want your cell phone in your energy field, and consider your energy field about 8 feet away from you. So you do not want to have your emitting devices like a cell phone or a tablet or whatever, uh, unless it's on airplane mode. If you turn on airplane mode and you only turn airplane mode off when you need to be actually transmitting data, when you need to be making a phone call or sending and receiving texts, we have to get in the habit of either turning airplane mode on while we have it on our body. So many women are sticking their cell phone in their bra, going for a jog like that, going shopping like that. Okay, you are putting radiation right next to very sensitive breast tissue. And we have to stop doing that. There are case studies, and I think it's going to be emerging whether this is really a thing or not, but there are case studies where there are brain tumors, the actual size and shape of a cell phone right where the person held it against their head. See, we've only been carrying cell phones for like what, 15 years, and it's starting to become an epidemic. That the more interaction you have with emitting devices, the higher brain cancer. That's really clear now. That's very clear. But so as for cell phones and emitting devices, you don't want to be carrying them in your bras, ladies, and guys listening, you don't want to be carrying them in your pocket right next to your little swimmers. Okay. I mean, we're talking about not just your reproductive health here, we're also talking about your sexual health. Okay. Even if you're not super interested in making babies, you want to keep your sexual health vital till you're dead, right? And so, and then other things, like the bleeding electricity, it's probably, 6 or 8 feet that it's affecting you, maybe more. But the really bad one, there's actually a couple really bad ones. The biggest one is Wi-Fi. Okay, you want that off, even if it's the floor below you, and maybe your bedroom is on the top floor. Wi-Fi that radiation can be detected a floor above, even 2 floors above. The biggest shocker when I tested everything in my house, and I flew out Dr. Libby Darnell. I did a video masterclass with her. You can take a look at that in the free guide that we give you. I did a video masterclass with her, and she flew out from Chicago, and she had her big fancy equipment that I would never, necessarily buy, these like $2,000-$3,000 meters. And we tested what kind of EMF I'm getting from the nearest cell phone tower. Go outside and measure that. We took a look at what kind of metering the electric company is using. Luckily, I didn't have a smart meter on my house, and we need to talk about that. Make sure we talk about that, Ashley, what you can do. This is in the free guide, but we should mention that because that's another one that will radiate you at very high levels, almost relentlessly. And sometimes they can triangulate. There's one across the street, there's one right by your house, and there's one somewhere else. And when they triangulate, there's some very terrible things that can happen for people's health. Like if you're unlucky enough to have 3 smart meters triangulating in your bedroom, right where you sleep, for instance. But anyway, so Wi-Fi is very important. But here's the big shocker for me is that my son's gaming system was so high emitting that you could literally detect it. You can detect it even 2 floors above where the kid is using it. And it actually pegged out Dr. Libby Darnell's meter when it wasn't even on, when it was just plugged into the wall. And she had warned me about that, but I was like, that seems strange. And what we found is that my son actually had a second gaming system, and they were both plugged into the wall. And, he's not a huge gamer. And so, he might go weeks at a time where he was in school. He was, at the time we did all this measuring, I think he was a junior in high school. Now he's a freshman in college and gone from home. But, I didn't know he had a second one. I was like, I don't know if he bought it from a friend or what, but that was one of the worst sources of EMF in my house. And so when we went around and did a bunch of the things that we put in this free EMF action plan, we were able to bring the chaotic frequencies in my home way, way down. And that's what I'm hoping to educate your audience about, Ashley, is that when you bring it way down, we may not be able to bring it to zero, but not only are we then getting a lot less exposure to radiation, which we all know that is very disorganizing for our cells, right? It's causing protons and electrons to malfunction, to not do what they're supposed to do in our cells. We're picking up electrons and protons that we don't need. We are not, the cells are not able to transact business with each other like they normally would. But in addition to reducing radiation, we also then have a home that's more like the calming, peaceful place that we want it to be. We want our homes to be like a safe haven, a place where we can calm down, rest and relax after work. And so that's part of the goal here too.
I love it. I had Dr. Klinghardt on my show, who actually is a local to me, just about 15 minutes away at the Sophia Health Institute. But he's internationally known, and many, in his 40 years of practicing, many parents have brought their children who've been diagnosed or misdiagnosed with being on the spectrum, have come to him, and the first thing he has them do is remove exposure to Wi-Fi. He absolutely sees a huge difference in children who are autistic or have sensory issues, sensory processing issues, that their symptoms are magnified by being around Wi-Fi, and that when he removes devices from their environment and he has the parents turn off Wi-Fi and hopefully live in a home that's not like an apartment where you're exposed no matter what, but in a home that can be far enough away from neighbors' Wi-Fi, that they calm down, that they have less tics and less outbursts. And then and he explains that glyphosate being a big part of this, because glyphosate is a chelator that, and Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who's been on the show, talked about this too, that glyphosate will grab heavy metals like aluminum and will deposit them in our kidneys and deposit them in our brain. And so even in utero, this is happening because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, crosses the placenta barrier. So heavy metals have been accumulating in their nervous tissue. And then when we turn on the Wi-Fi, which is at 60 hertz, I believe, it's vibrating the metal in this tiny microscopic metal that's in our brain. It's vibrating that, which is heating up. Because if you think when you vibrate a metal, it's going to heat up. And so it's kind of like putting your head in a microwave. It's just it's the Wi-Fi is making the heavy metal in your body vibrate, which is creating heat, and that of course is going to damage us. And they're seeing that it affects the mitochondria negatively.
We should talk about that because there are other things people don't think about with metals. You're talking about actual heavy metals that are trapped in tissues, organs, and cells. But what about the fact that we wear metal jewelry, ladies, and then we sit in our cars and we text? We're literally making ourselves an antenna in a microwave. And that might be kind of extreme. Let's not create panic, because people might say, well, I do it and I don't feel like I fried myself, and I get out of the car and walk away. That's true, but like, can we just acknowledge this simple fact that reminds me of when we go through the scanner, the TSA scanner, when we go to get on a flight, and the TSA agent will tell you when you say, I want to opt out, I don't want to get radiated in your scanner, and they're like, oh, it's like being in the sun for 10 minutes. Well, it's not the single exposure. It's the cumulative effect of the many, many exposures that we have. And so even though you might, like you said before, you almost wish that we had a violent reaction to these exposures so that we were motivated to bring the level down, we do need to acknowledge that there is an insidious process that's taking place from our cumulative exposures, and going through the checkpoint to get on a flight is just one of them. Then being on the flight actually exposes you to quite a bit of radiation. But that's why it's really a multifactorial problem, and we need to just be aware. And that's why I love to do shows like yours, where you're super interested in educating all the health coaches and other people who follow you about this, because there's a lot of little, small, not difficult at all things that you can do, and you're chipping away at that exposure. And if you can decrease that exposure by 3/4 and it's easy and cheap to do so, why would you not do that? It's not even changing your lifestyle. We're not saying you have to drink a quart of green smoothie a day to bring your exposure down. That's like actually a significant change that I always try to get people to make. But bringing your EMF level down doesn't decrease your enjoyment of your life. I'm not asking you to give up your Cheetos to bring your EMF down, or whatever is like this pleasure thing. that you have in your life. You don't have to give up pleasure in your life to bring EMF down. It's just being aware, and it's making some really simple changes. Really don't have to go out of your way to bring your EMF levels down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think people might go, well, but I'm addicted to my phone. I look at it all the time. I don't want to put it in airplane mode because I want to know when I get a text. What about those people who are a little they want to lower their EMFs, but they don't want to interrupt their phone addiction?
Yeah, you know what? I am finding that fewer and fewer people are saying that because they know they have a problem. They know they're addicted. Now our phones are telling us how much time we spend online, and the amount of time I spend looking at my phone is a full-time job. Now, granted, I have a full-time job that is online, but I shouldn't be spending 8 hours a day on social media, texting, phone, etc. But that's what my phone tells me. What I'm finding is that people aren't saying that. They're like, no, I want to be addicted to my phone. I want to look at my phone all day, every day. I'm finding that people are, we were totally enamored of our phones and our devices, and we were super excited about it. And now people are going, oh my gosh, what could I be doing with this time that I spend staring at a device? And so, I'm not saying that it's not total. I'm not saying it's completely easy to say, you know what, I'm going to have my phone on airplane mode a lot more than I do. I mean, at a minimum, put your phone on airplane mode at night. And you might think, oh, well, I mean, my phone is charging 6 feet away from me or whatever. This has been a hard one for me to get my kids who sleep with their cell phone next to their head. I don't. I put it in the bathroom around the corner from me, but I always turn airplane mode on just because and I should mention this too. There's turning airplane mode on, which eliminates all emissions from your phone. Um, there's no transmitting from your phone at all when airplane mode is on. But here's the thing: like if you're a person who constantly has Wi-Fi on your phone, then instead of your phone pinging the towers every few minutes, it's doing it every few seconds.
Hmm.
And so that's another thing. Like all of this is incremental and every little bit helps. So not having your Wi-Fi on all the time. Like some people want to have like the most inexpensive cell phone plan they can. And so they really rely on Wi-Fi. And I would just challenge anybody who's like, no, I want to look at my phone all day, every day. I think people aren't really saying that. They're starting to see the cost of that. Not just the cost in terms of EMF, that might be new information for some people listening. I think your audience is actually pretty educated and is probably aware of EMF, even though I would say probably 98% of the population isn't. But they're also starting to become aware of the costs in terms of their social life and how meaningful their interactions with other people are and their productivity. Like when you put in an 8 hour day at work, but 2.5 hours of it is being hijacked by your phone and texting people and looking at Facebook and whatever, like how are we getting ahead in our careers when we're doing that? So there's other benefits to decreasing your screen time. Um, then there's more benefits than just that you're getting less exposure to radiation.
I don't remember the exact study, but it was very interesting. A past guest talked about it, that they did a study where they put a cell phone up to brains for a certain amount of time, 2 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it was. And then they looked at the mitochondria. So the mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cells. For those who don't know, they produce ATP, which is the cellular energy. And there's some doctors that say that all disease is disease of the mitochondria, that they basically can look back and say that where disease starts is when the mitochondria are damaged or can't work properly. Then that's the beginning of disease, of any disease. That's kind of the root cause. So some people believe it's the root cause, but what they found is that the mitochondria go to sleep when they've been directly beside a cell phone, a phone call, a smartphone, that the mitochondria for a certain amount of time go to sleep. The mitochondria of the nervous tissue, of the brain, the brain cells. That is really scary. The idea that our exposure is constantly dampening the the mitochondria from functioning, but the mitochondria of our brain, of our nervous tissue, is being dampened, and that's like they can see that with all their $20,000 scientific tools, they can see that. We don't feel it because you don't feel when you're, but besides feeling maybe brain fog or fatigue or not having good sleep, we don't feel the EMF. But if we keep going the way we're going to create disease.
Yeah, and we don't know yet what the long-term impact will be of so much radiation we're now exposed to, especially in the last 15 years since cell phones became ubiquitous. What will be the long-term impact on neurological disease? We know that neurological disease is skyrocketing. We know that Parkinson's, ALS, MS, dementia, Alzheimer's are skyrocketing, and when we're shooting a stun gun at, like you said, our neurological function, I have to wonder if there's going to be a long-term, really negative effect on the neurological health of people using all these technologies all the time and not mitigating it. Because
Mm-hmm.
like right now, while I'm talking to you, I'm obviously sitting in front of a computer and I'm aware that I have some exposure right now, but my cell phone is not in the room with me. And when I go get it later and check it, I'll either put it back where it was and leave it out of the room with me where it doesn't, tempt me to pick it up and check it 3 times an hour. Or if I bring it back in here, I will turn it on airplane mode. So I know we've hit that one hard. And there are other things that we can look at, but each one of these things does make a difference. So don't feel overwhelmed. Just chip away at it.
Mm-hmm. I can attest to the fact that you don't have your cell phone with you because I tried calling you right before our interview and you didn't answer. So I'm like, oh, she doesn't have her cell phone with her.
She's walking the talk. She must be
Yep.
decreasing her EMF exposure.
Yeah, I caught you. I caught you doing exactly what you say you do, which is awesome. Very cool. So any of the outlets in our home or our office can be spewing dirty electricity. We can think of it as sort of like Fukushima leaking radiation. Our house could be leaking electromagnetic radiation at us and disrupting our overall health. And we can easily fix that. We use your free guide, and it talks about the steps we can take to first of all test our meters, test our outlets, and then fix our outlets should they be above 50, which you're saying is the number you want to be below. And that's
Right.
learntrail.com/EMF is the free guide. Okay, so that's taken care of. Let's talk about smart meters, because I first heard about smart meters, I feel maybe about 7 years ago, and they sounded really crazy. So I might not have a full understanding of what smart meters are, but are they like these big white boxes that are outside your home that are like have their own version of Wi-Fi and they talk to your house and they like measure the amount of energy and they actually emit like a frequency that's like Wi-Fi, is that correct?
Kind of. And we go in we tell you what you need to know in the free guide at learntruehealth.com/EMF. But here's the thing. So electric companies don't want to come out and read your meter anymore. Obviously, as technology has advanced, they want to get people out of it and automate just like everybody else does. We're now in the age where a lot of people refer to this as the age of the Internet of Things. And 5G is accommodating this rollout of 5G that is on its way to select American cities and eventually probably everywhere where there's any real population density, is to accommodate the Internet of Things, where now your refrigerator will be attached to an app and will be emitting, and your thermostat and so many other things. And we've all seen this. I mean, there's a medicine cabinet that has Bluetooth in it, that when I was moving last year, I saw, and I was like, this is it. This is the Internet of Things. Everything's going to be emitting. And nobody's really counting the cost and saying, well, I don't think we should sell bathroom medicine cabinets that are emitting chaotic radiation that our family is exposed to. Nobody's going to say that because they just want the high-tech thing. That's what's really hot, hot, hot right now. So, of course, the electric company doesn't want to meter you by sending a guy out. That's really expensive. So there are analog meters, that send data about your electric usage to the electric company, whether it's 5 miles away or 50 miles away. And in the house I just moved away from, and in this one that I just moved up here to Park City, Utah 9 months ago, I have an analog meter, and it'll ping the electric company a couple times a month. No big deal. You shouldn't worry about that. That's just not going to rate on my top 10 things for you to worry about. However, take a look at the free guide so you can figure out whether you have a smart meter. I started talking about smart meters 12 years ago on GreenSmoothieGirl.com, and I had my own staff was saying, you need to not talk about that because you sound like a crazy tinfoil hat lady, because that's weird. You shouldn't talk about these stories about how people who, live in a place where 3 smart meters are triangulating, that their retina's ruptured, because you sound like a crazy person. I'm like, well, okay, but I think this is a real thing, and this is why I think it's a real thing, and it's measurable. It's this, this is not hocus pocus anymore. Well, we've come a long way in the last 12 years since I started writing about that. And I think more people are taking it seriously, and it's more established science. Whereas back then it was mostly just testimonials of people saying, hey, these smart meters are scary. But the thing with a smart meter is that it's attached to maybe the side of your house or your condo or whatever. And it's literally pinging the electric company every few seconds. And it's a very, very strong signal. Now, why would this matter? What if it's right outside your child's bedroom? Okay. What if it is right below your condo? Now, I have an employee, and this is in the free guide. I have an employee who went to the electric company. She's in North Carolina, and she said, my functional medicine doctor says that I am made very ill by electromagnetic frequencies, and I can't be near a smart meter. And not only, and this is, sometimes we talk about negative things. This is kind of exciting because 10 and 12 years ago, people were going out in the middle of the night and smashing the meter. And then the electrical company comes out and would fix it, and they would go out and smash it again. So basically civil disobedience, or people were going out and putting aluminum foil on it. And there were companies who were developing shields so that on the inside of your wall, if you had a smart meter, that you could try to shield your house. And, that's a whole rabbit hole we won't go down. But this is the kind of thing people were doing 12 years ago, is acts of civil disobedience. I mean, it's like the Boston Tea Party. Let's throw all the tea in the ocean, in the harbor. Here's the thing. My employee in North Carolina told the electrical company that she would be made very ill by having a smart meter. And not only did they opt her out of the smart meter, but they didn't charge her to put in an analog meter instead.
Wow.
And I think this is exciting because it sets a precedent. If they're going to let her do it, now granted, she got a letter from a functional medicine doctor, and hey, maybe you have a neighbor who's willing to do it for you, who's a doctor, and will write you this letter or whatever. But we're going to attach this. We're going to link in the free guide that's on learntruehealth.com/EMF. We're going to put on there, we're going to scratch out her name, and we're going to put a link to it so you can see exactly what her functional medicine doc said that created a liability issue for the power company.
Whoa.
And the form that she filled out, and it got her off the hook. Because so 10, 12 years ago, my own employees were telling me that I was a lunatic for even talking about these issues. 5 years ago, we were able to opt out, but only after a big fight, and we had to then pay 25 or 30 bucks a month for them to come out and read it to be able to get out of the smart meter. Now, these power companies are accepting that it does harm people and are waiving the fee if you can say that it harms you.
How do you know if you have a smart meter?
Go take a look, because it's really sort of a visual thing, and they do look different. But in the video masterclass I did with Dr. Libby, and it's in the guide, it's in the free guide that we're sharing with you. But there is a video about that where Libby goes out and we show what my analog meter on the side of my house looks like. We show photos of what smart meters look like, and we show, just the ones that the guys would come around and take a look at. So it's more of a show than a tell.
Got it.
because they do look a little bit different. But we are clear about that, and we show in the video master class that you can see in the guide.
So the smart meter that's attached to your house is sending out signals every few seconds to a receiver somewhere in the street, somewhere on a pole, and that receiver is receiving the smart meter readings from the neighborhood and then sending it to the electric company. But because signal like a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth, all these signals they don't beam directly. They go out like a sphere. And so the signal, it's trying to get to the street. It's have to be the smart meter has to be strong enough to send the data all the way, maybe a block down or wherever the reader is. And that, so the signal has to be incredibly strong. And every time it pulses to send out that information, it's like a sphere wave that's pulsing through your entire house and penetrating everyone in it.
Yes, and I would say, so yeah, there are transmitters and receivers, and when we have 5G, I'm gonna stay in touch with you, Ashley, and I'm gonna share a solution for 5G, like a whole home solution that I think you'll be super interested in, and I think that you'll want to tell your followers about it because, those of us who know 5G is coming are like, okay, what are we gonna do? What are we going to do when 5G comes? Because we're not going to opt out of Wi-Fi. I mean, it's just the way the world works. I'm not going to buy a refrigerator as long as I have other options. I'm not going to buy a refrigerator that I operate by app and my thermostat isn't controlled by app. You know what? I got a litter robot for my cat, and it next thing I know, there's an app on my phone. I don't know if whoever set it up for me I don't think they put it on my phone. I'm like, why is there a litter robot for my cat on my phone? So this is when I say the Internet of Things, I mean it's proliferating in a quantum way. So I'm really excited about the fact that there are companies developing solutions for this. And unfortunately, 99 point something percent of us are going to be asleep at the wheel, but not your followers. They're going to stay close to you. You have your ear to the ground. You're going to pay attention, and the solutions that actually work, they're actually proven to work. And I am right now following a company that is, I think they have the solution. To the extent there is a solution, I think they have a solution, and I'll be introducing you to them. I have been talking to them very extensively. But in the meantime, there are multiple solutions. Like if you want to screen blue light, then you're going to have to maybe the last couple hours of the day, if you're going to be working on your PC or looking at your phone or watching TV, maybe you wear blue light blockers. And we have in the free guide our favorite blue blockers, stuff like that. There's, or you're going to keep your kids' gaming stations unplugged. That was a rule from that time forward when I found out that Tennyson's gaming systems, even when they weren't in use, were one of the biggest sources in my house. You're going to have your Wi-Fi turned off. You're going to not have your Wi-Fi in the room where you work, if possible. So these are the kinds of things you're going to do that are going to bring this down. But yes, smart meters are one of your worst sources. And Wi-Fi in your home are one of your worst sources. And your kid's gaming system is one of your worst sources. So hope that's helpful.
Absolutely helpful. I'm going to have to run around my house and see if I have a smart meter now. Turning off the Wi-Fi. So I have a modem, a router that I can turn off that has an on-off switch. Because ones that don't have an on-off switch, it's like a pain in the butt to turn off. If you unplug it and plug it back in, sometimes you have to like reboot the system and their software. And so get one that has an on-off switch. I'll see if I can give the info about mine in the show notes of the podcast at learntohealth.com. It's so easy. We only turn our Wi-Fi on when we absolutely need it. So like I have a Sunlight and Sauna, and there's a tablet in there, and I want to stream some music or watch something. I turn on the Wi-Fi, then I get out of the sauna, immediately turn it off. Only use it when I need it. Otherwise, we hardwired all of our computers directly to the modem so that we don't need to have that bombardment of that frequency. But what's really interesting is that I can tell when the Wi-Fi's on. Like I'll be in the bedroom and my husband will turn it off and then come into the bedroom to go to bed, and I'll say, "Did you just turn it off?" Like I'll feel it. I can feel it's like being agitated and then all of a sudden not being agitated. It's really weird. Like if it's on all the time, it's just like just a little, like a 1% agitation. I feel like that's kind of my norm. But when I turn it off, I'm like, oh, and all of a sudden it just feels like a little bit less agitation. It's interesting that now that I turn it off most of the time, and then when I turn on, I can actually feel it. But at first, like if I go into someone else's house, I don't notice it, right? It's very slight, but it's really interesting. So it's fun to play with, actually. It's fun to play with to turn it off. It's also cool to turn it off because then gets the whole household sort of like winding down for bedtime instead of playing on their tablets till 11 at night. But I love your idea of wearing the blue blocking glasses, having the Wi-Fi off as much as possible, checking for smart meters, and opting out of smart meters when possible. 5G is really scary. We've talked about it on the show before. I am kind of terrified, and I'm thinking I'm going to move to the middle of nowhere if 5G comes to my neighborhood. So I'm really glad that you have been working with a company to bring us some solutions. I look forward to having you back on the show to talk about that. You mentioned light bulbs. It's funny because my husband and I just replaced all the light bulbs in our kitchen, and I think we spent a half an hour at Home Depot because I'm like, he was going for a light bulb. I said, no, that's a bad light bulb. That's a dirty light bulb. And so we spent like a half an hour trying to pick the cleanest light bulbs. So I'd love to talk about light bulbs and what are the bad ones? What are the good ones?
Okay, so the worst ones, and these are the light bulbs that kind of came out when people became more aware of global warming. And then after a few years of them being out on the market, people are like, wait a minute, this has mercury in it. And it's off-gassing mercury. The ones to avoid, categorically avoid, are called CFLs. Okay, those are those swirly bulbs. And you know what I'm talking about, the swirly ones. Don't buy them. If you have them in your house, you got to get rid of them. I hate to say it because that means mercury is going to go in the landfill, but I care more about the fact that you not have it in your house. Now, when you put those CFLs in, they're doing most of their off-gassing, like 70% of it, within the first few days after installing it. So they're just terrible in those early days. They put out a lot of EMF and they're emitting mercury. So please stop buying those CFLs. Those were sold to us as a global warming solution, and they're just not a solution for anything good. And so you're going to replace them with the incandescent bulbs, and those are the old school ones. Okay, those are the ones you grew up with, and they're cheap. And we link you to them on Amazon. Just good dependable, cheap incandescent bulbs, but you can get them at Home Depot too, whatever you want to do. But probably your second best, the third category of bulbs is the LED bulbs. And those are probably about $20 for an 8-pack. Those are more expensive than incandescent. So don't you love that the good ones are the cheap ones here?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the cheap bulbs, the ones that we had when we were kids. LEDs are the second best, but I've tested some that are pretty high EMF and some that are pretty low. And so, gosh, if you have a choice, just go with incandescent, right?
My understanding with the LED is that they have a flash rate, like a flicker rate, that is not very healthy. Have you heard of that?
Well, yeah, and it may be affecting your pineal gland. So, we don't really know yet what impact LED bulbs are having. I mean, they're being sold as being useful for our health in some ways. Other data suggests that LEDs, in at least some applications and some products, are a problem. And so, if you have your choice and you don't have a reason to be using LED, just go with the incandescent. So, the pineal gland and the blue light thing, just to barely touch on that, to give you the very, very basic nutshell here, is that your pineal gland used to produce melatonin starting about 9 or 10 o'clock at night after the sun went down because your body's signal came through your eyes into your pineal gland in the brain, and melatonin is produced to calm you down and allow you to sleep. Well, the problem now is that everybody's looking at screens all the way until bedtime, and that blue light spectrum is telling your pineal gland, hey, it's still daytime. And so it's confusing your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's your pineal gland then is not necessarily producing melatonin or not enough to calm you down and let you sleep. And so you can wear blue blockers, or you can just stop interacting with screens at night and decide, no, we're going to enjoy each other, enjoy your husband, enjoy your kids, read a book, something like that.
My husband just mouthed to me, "We have a smart meter."
Uh-oh, he probably Googled it. Uh-oh, uh-oh.
He's looking at me. He's in the office, but he knows not to make any noise. Um, so I'm going to follow your free guide to opt out of my smart meter. I'm
Good.
so glad I'm learning from you today, and I'm glad my listeners are learning from you today. Ryan Sternagel, who I've had on the show, and I know you're friends with him because he's local to you.
Yep.
He is he's now called the Stern Method, but before it was My Kid Cures Cancer. That was the name of the show, and he talks about the new house he built, which is now completed. But he built an entire house after they helped their son no longer have cancer. They decided to live the lowest EMF, the lowest toxicity life possible, and they built a house from scratch out of all non-toxic materials, which is really interesting. But he talks about how he has light bulbs in his house that are red, so at night they turn on those lights, and he says it's kind of funny. The neighbors probably think they're like satanic worshipers. The whole house is like lit red, but that it's to lower the blue light. Do you have any thoughts on choosing incandescent bulbs for their color spectrum?
You can, but the very best thing is that we live as close to nature as possible. And so we just have as few electronics at night in our energy field as possible, and we're looking at blue light as little as possible. And you could go to the links that Ryan and Teddy have. I just had dinner with them on Friday night, and the things that they have done to help Ryder. I mean, he still has the tumor. But they arrested the growth of it, and it isn't growing. Um, and they were able to get out of some of the chemotherapy that the doctors wanted for him. The things that they've done have been nothing short of heroic. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure that most people are going to put red light spectrum to kind of go the other direction and compensate for the blue light, but I mean, you can do that if you want. But I think if we're really getting back to nature and we're getting back to normal circadian rhythms and the normal biorhythms of the earth, we want to just think, what did our ancestors do? Like, what were our great 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 grandparents doing? Because there wasn't insomnia back then. There wasn't ADD. There was very little autism. Okay, our grandparents didn't even know the word autism, and now we all know lots and lots of autistic kids. I mean, I know pediatricians who were told when they were in medical school, you'll see this a couple times in your career. That's how fast this
Mm-hmm.
whole autism thing has come on. But I think it can be simpler than that. I don't think we necessarily have to go retrofit our house with red lights at night. What we can do though is leave the lights off. I mean, I'm not saying we have to light a candle either. Most people are going to be just fine with turning the lamp on next to your bed and reading a book as your mind and your neurological system shut down for the night. Some people, I do not find it difficult to go to sleep after watching TV, that my TV on my wall in front of my bed that's 12 feet away. I don't find that, but you know what? If I sit there and look at my phone till I go to bed, I can't go to sleep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's
yeah, so you
something
got to know
about
yourself.
that. Yeah, exactly. When I first heard about blue blocking glasses, I really thought it was a total farce. And so the guest that I'd on who sold them said, "Well, let me send you a pair." And I had him on for a totally different reason, nothing to do with blue blocking. We just kind of got on the subject, and he said, "Let me send you a pair." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." I put him on when the sun set, and by 9 at night, I could not keep my eyes open. I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to bed." Like I was exhausted, like my body was like out. That was such a big difference from, because I'm one of those night owls. Like I can just be up till 2 in the morning. And what happens is if we stay up past 10, our body gets the second wind. The brain goes, okay, I guess we got to stay up. Stop making melatonin. Okay, start making some stress hormones. Let's stay awake. Let's push through it.
Yeah.
Let's pull an all-nighter. And that's why then if we're watching TV till 11, a lot of people then really have problems falling asleep, and then they don't have deep quality sleep. And so wearing that blue blocking glasses or putting the apps on your phone that block or that lower the blue light can make a really big difference to melatonin production. But this is all in the realm of our devices. which we've only had in this one generation. You know, our parents didn't grow up with this. I mean, I didn't have a cell phone until I was 19, and that was pretty early on, to have a cell phone in 99. But you know, they weren't. You know, I didn't have a smartphone until 2000 and geez, like 10, I think maybe. But you know, so it's really, really, really recently. We have to remember what life was like, you know, 30 years ago. It's just that this has the technology has completely changed our habits, and these habits have led to poor health. And so we need to come back. I'd like that you said we need to come back to nature. So we talked about 5G, light bulbs, smart meters, cleaning up the, making sure that we don't have dirty electricity coming out of our outlets. Is there anything else about EMF that we want to be aware of?
You know, I think one subject that we should touch on is that most of us aren't in contact with Earth like we were for, thousands of years. And so if you're having a stressful day and there's a lot of negative energy going on, maybe you have some problems with a colleague or your boss or some partner that you work with, or in your own personal life, a lot of times we can feel a lot better by going outside and getting as much of your body in contact with earth as possible. And or you can hug a tree, and that might sound like very tree hugger, but here's the thing. When we do that, we are in contact with a very high frequency source, and we are going to discharge electrons we don't need, and protons actually, onto the ground, and we are going to pick up others that we do need. The body knows, your molecules know what atoms they need, okay? And so you're going to be able to ground yourself. That most people aren't doing that. They don't ground themselves at all. If you get off of an airplane and you get to your hotel and you feel sort of fragmented, or like Ashley was talking about, how she can tell when the Wi-Fi's on and when it's not because you just feel kind of unsettled or wired. I'm sort of putting my own words on it, but if you get off of an airplane and you feel like that, you're not alone. Lots of people feel like that, and it's that exposure to radiation. Take your shoes off on the airplane and put with your socks on the floor of the airplane. That'll help a little bit. And then when you get to your hotel or to your friend's house or wherever you're going, go outside and sit on the ground for 5 minutes. It is absolutely amazing how when you go, especially if it's a sunny day, and you can go outside and put your hands and your legs and your feet, just sit on the ground or lie on the ground if it's appropriate, on dirt, on sand if it's a beach, on the grass, even better. Just lie on the ground. You're going to be discharging a lot of dirty, chaotic energies, and you're going to be picking up electrons that you need. But also, if you're lying there in the sun, guess what? You are an electrical being, and you are charging in the sun. You are picking up energies that you need doing that. Gosh, if you drink a glass of water before you go outside to do that, even better. Okay, now your electrical system can work better because it's hydrated. Okay, we know that the electrical system needs water to be conductive. So, and don't take your cell phone with you. Rather than go outside with your cell phone sitting in the grass, leave it. Get away from the house. And so these are the kind of simple things that we can do, and it kind of gives us back what we used to have. Like we were talking about circadian rhythms and what our ancestors used to do back before there was all these people complaining of brain fog and ADD, and we have all these sensory and processing disorders. Let's just go back to basics. And maybe that doesn't solve every problem that you've ever had, to go out and ground yourself, but I do it every single day that I get the chance during the spring, summer, and fall. So that's probably something that I would want to mention that's really simple that we all forget to do. And if you're not in contact with earth, at least get in the sun.
I like this idea of earthing. I had a naturopath talk about it, and she recommends everyone have a grounding mat. And so my husband built one. He's very hands-on. He went online, looked up some guides, went to Home Depot and bought all this material, and he built a grounding mat. And it's this guide said you can put the metal rod in the earth, and then have the I guess copper wire coming from the rod all the way through so you have to move your screen and your window to have it come through and then come into the metal mat that you'll put at the base of your bed so your feet are on the metal mat. And, or if you are in an apartment or, you're too far away from a window, you could plug it into the grounding part of the outlet. So my husband didn't tell me he did this, which is a great, double blind study for our bedroom, because I didn't know what's going on. I knew he was building one. I didn't know that he had actually plugged it into the grounding outlet and put it on our bed. I was lying there the entire night. I could not sleep. I felt like I had drank coffee all day long. And I
Okay, well,
was so
let me
upset.
say something about that, because my legs tingled the whole time when I had a grounding mat on my bed, and I did not know this at the time, but now I do, that you have to filter the electricity in your bedroom first.
Right. This is what I'm getting at, is that he plugged it into the grounding thinking that that was safe. But if you have dirty electricity in your bedroom, it's just amplifying it. And so I
Yeah.
felt horrible. And I was like, how, what did you do to me? This was akin to torture. So then the next night he plugged it in outside, and it was a much different experience. There wasn't any agitation, but it energized me. So it was a different feeling. It was a different feeling having it plugged in outside. So we decided it wasn't best to be in our bedroom, probably because of what you're saying, because we need to clean up the energy or the electricity in our bedroom. So we ended up plugging it in and putting it on the sofa in the living room. But we found that and of course we could have just gone outside and freaking sat in the ground, but I don't know. We had to create some kind of way to ground inside for fun, just to experiment with it. And I noticed that every time I sat on it, I was energized and I felt clear-headed. I just felt more
Oh, good.
energized and more clear-headed, which was really interesting. But I could have probably had the same wonderful benefits if I just went and lay down on the backyard. But I love that concept of grounding, that we are releasing these electrons, that we're releasing the extra electrons, and we're connecting with the energy that our body needs. That makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and everyone should have, if they're going to make an investment in ongoing testing, like, don't buy a infrared sauna unless you know it's low EMF, or, it's one of the things you're going to consider, or different things in the future. Make sure, if I tell you one more thing, make sure you have a tri-field meter and a green wave meter. They're doing two different things, and we link you to them in the free guide. One more time, it's at learntruehealth.com/EMF. But I link you to the meter that I like for testing hotspots. Okay, so you can test, what's my home office like? What's my bedroom like in an area? Or what's the inside of my infrared sauna like? Or what near my son's gaming system when it's plugged in, what's that like? But then the other one is the one that you plug into the wall. And so we link you to that, and those are two very important things, so that you're not just guessing. Okay, so you need to know where are the risk factors in your home. And if your refrigerator is emitting, then that doesn't mean you're going to get rid of your refrigerator. It just means you're not going to stand by the refrigerator necessarily all the time. So,
Well, they emit through Wi-Fi. So if you turn off the Wi-Fi, or maybe there's a way to turn it off, to opt out of the emitting, either the Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi, whatever it's emitting. Maybe there's a way to turn it off. But if you're turning off, hopefully if you turn off your Wi-Fi, it could lower that. Now, what about these devices that we've seen people buy to put on the back of their cell phone or put on their laptop to help lower EMF?
okay, so I link you to the one that I like, and it's not actually lowering EMF. It's protecting human cells from chaotic frequencies. So it's a patented device, and this is one of the really simple and inexpensive solutions. And I keep some in my purse, a 5-pack. We have negotiated a 40% off discount. So it's like 5 of them for $60. So it's a really inexpensive fix, and you put it on your device. And what it is it's 3 layers of paramagnetic materials. I mean, we have crystalline structures in our pineal gland, and so do, for instance, homing pigeons and whales that can, travel thousands of miles to get back home. They are grounding, these crystalline structures. And what these paramagnetic materials are doing is protecting human cells from chaotic radiation. It's not getting in the way of signal. It's not decreasing the actual emissions, but putting one of these on your devices, it's not the only thing that we're talking about today, but it is one of the easiest things, and it's my like first priority. I carry them in my purse so that if I meet a child who's carrying a cell phone, I put it on there. I don't ask their parents for any money for it. I just put it on their child's cell phone because I've tested this. I've done this, and one of my followers at GreenSmoothieGirl did this, where we actually had a living houseplant with the same phone next to the houseplant, one of them protected by this device, which is called the Zuby device that is on the cell phone, and one of them unprotected. And the unprotected phone killed the houseplant.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, and we've actually done this little experiment multiple times. The first time I did it was with one of my kids for a science fair project. And this made it very visual so the other kids could see, you don't want to carry your cell phone while it's, transmitting in your pocket all day, every day. And so I wish every kid in America knew this. And the reason I'll stick it on a child I barely know, I'll stick it on their cell phone. And first of all, I'll explain to them what I'm doing, and I'll muscle test them. And some people say, oh, muscle testing isn't real. But I think your audience can understand kinesiology a little bit and how there are certain things that affect our overall energy. But I have blind tested many people who don't even know what I'm doing to their cell phone as being very, very strong when their cell phone is not in their energy field. And then I put their cell phone in their other hand, and all of a sudden they're completely weak, and their arm just collapses with a very light pressure from me. Their arm just collapses against their body. And then when I put the Zuby on it, this device, and they don't know that I've done it. They don't know I put anything on their cell phone. They're strong again. And so I did that for many, 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 many times, always blind, never told the person what I was doing, never let them see that I was doing something to their phone. And it just worked every single time. So I became a believer in that patented technology that's FCC tested. And, the independent labs show that it protects human brain cells and human living cells 84 to 100% from the effects of these chaotic frequencies. But what I'm really concerned about is children, because their brains are more exposed than ours are. We get a harder and harder skull, as a thicker skull as we get older, but children's organs and brain matter are so very exposed. I mean, the younger, the more vulnerable. And so finding out where that smart meter is on your place, I'm going to follow up with you, Ashley. I'm going to ask what you learned. I'm going to ask what you learned. I'm not worried about you because you're going to protect your kid. You're a total mama bear. But if that smart meter is right outside your child's room, your child is more vulnerable than you are. I mean, we are seeing a meteoric rise in childhood brain cancer, and I have to wonder if the exposure to radiation is one of the reasons.
Or a combination, like Dr. Klinghardt says, is the heavy metals from the
Yep.
glyphosate, because glyphosate is a chelator, binds the heavy metals in the soil and the heavy metals in our body, heavy metals wherever it comes in contact with, and it will release heavy metals when it changes pH. So when it changes from the blood to the cerebral spinal fluid, it lets go of the mercury, lets go of the aluminum, lets go of whatever it's holding on to, the heavy metal. And same with the kidneys when blood becomes urine, and that's why glyphosate deposits the heavy metals into the brain and into the kidneys. And then we've got there's a trifecta. We have more heavy metals in our brain than we did 30 years ago because our food supply is contaminated with glyphosate. And then on top of that, then we have the high EMFs coming in that we didn't have 30 years ago. We didn't have this level on these devices. And then that's vibrating the heavy metals. So it's this perfect storm we're seeing. And it is so sad to see that the childhood cancers, like brain cancer, is going through the roof, and that in one generation we've gone from, I think, 1 in 10,000 autistic or children on the spectrum to 1 in 40. I think I've heard is the latest number. And it's not because we weren't diagnosing them correctly back then. That's absolutely a complete smokescreen. We have a problem, and it happened in one generation, and we need to figure out what the heck is going on. And I know we feel very disempowered when we think of the big, like the big industries, like who am I to, you know what I mean? Who am I to stop 5G, that kind of thing? Like we feel really powerless. But where we are empowered is your list that you've given us, because it's up to us individually to put Xzubi, on all our devices, and to turn off our Wi-Fi and put our phone in airplane mode, and just go down the list that you give us, and one piece at a time, we can lower our exposure as much as possible. If we lived near Chernobyl, or if we lived near, Fukushima a few years ago, we'd be taking measures, right? Because we know that there's radiation happening to us, right? So if you live near known radiation, you do something about it. But there's radiation happening. It's a different form. It's taking a different form, and it's, supposedly safe, but we're way overexposed. So we need to just do everything we can to mitigate. If we're cleaning up our diet, and we're cleaning up our emotional mental health, and we're choosing to make all these health habits, then this is just one more health habit that's going to help us energetically and physically move in the direction of the best health possible. So I'm really excited that you came today and you shared everything that you're sharing. To complete our interview, are there any stories of success you want to leave us with? I know you get so much great feedback. You have a wonderful podcast, an amazing website, and all the links to everything that Robyn Openshaw does is going to be the show notes of today's podcast at learntoyourhealth.com. Are there any stories of success that, since you have been educating us and educating your listeners and all the followers that you have on EMF, have you received any really great stories of success where you're seeing that it's making a difference?
Yeah, I mean, there's the fact that I can sleep again. There's the fact that my son could focus in school again, but we also just get stories all the time about how these very simple, small actions that people are taking following the EMF action plan, or jumping into the video masterclass that I did with Dr. Libby Darnell and just putting these actions into place results in a lot of peace of mind, but also energy gains. It's probably the most common thing that we've been told is usually people will go to the lengths of making these changes if they're suffering in some way, but it's like a side benefit, even if it's not the thing that they were looking for, that by reducing the EMF in their energy field, in their home, in their work environment, that they gain more energy. So, you know, I should mention that if you said if we lived near Chernobyl, we would take major action. The thing is when Chernobyl happened, nobody knew yet what was going to be the consequence of it. And when Fukushima happened, we didn't know what was going to be the consequence of it. If we knew when the Chernobyl disaster happened, what we knew 20 years later, we would move. We would do anything in our power to get our children and ourselves, but we would get our families as far from Chernobyl as possible, and at any cost. But Joe Mercola has said that he believes that the EMF proliferation, the massive high chaotic frequencies in our environment, is the new secondhand smoking. He believes that we will look back 20 years from now and we will see the amount of unmitigated EMF in our environment as more dangerous than we now look back and see secondhand smoking. Because you're too young, Ashley, to have been there and been in restaurants. I was a waitress, and I put myself through college waitressing in the smoking section in a
Oh my
restaurant.
gosh.
I
Ugh.
sat on airplanes with smokers,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's unthinkable to millennials. They've never seen people smoking in a public place, but I would choose the smoking section over the others because smokers drink and drinkers tip. But here's the thing. Let's don't wait until 20 years from now when they're saying, well, that's what happened to brain cancer because we didn't do anything about the EMF, or that's what happened to all neurological disease. Is it 10x? We already are seeing it. We're already seeing the early signs. Let's mitigate it now. If you do this, you're going to be one in 1,000 that's even doing anything about it for their health. But let's get ahead of that curve, because I really don't think the effects of all this radiation are going to be good.
Mm-hmm. We might be, our friends, our family might think we're crazy. They're not on the bandwagon yet. We're early adapters. And those that are listening are also early adapters. And one day they will all wake up and realize that we were right. So let's be the early adapter. I'd rather be an early adapter and be called crazy, but be in better health because of it than be, a sheeple and and wait to get poisoned with everyone. I like to say this on the show. If look at the statistics, the cancer rates are almost 1 in 2. It's like 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 between men and women are expected to have a cancer diagnosis in their lifetime now. That 1 in 3 people are pre-diabetic. That 70% of the adult population are on at least one prescription medication. Heart disease is one of the leading, causes of death. It just goes on and on. If you want to live like a statistic, if you want the end of your life to be a statistic, live like everyone else, eat what everyone else is eating, and do what everyone else is doing. Follow along with the mainstream media advice of health and do exactly what the majority of the people are doing, and you are going to end up as a statistic. Of course, no one listening wants to be a statistic. We want to beat the odds. We want to all live to be 100 and jogging, running marathons at 105. We want to be absolute optimal health. We have to be the naysayer. We have to go against the crowd. We have to be early adopters, and we have to do exactly the opposite of what the majority of people are doing in order to not be a statistic. And this is a key component to that. So thank you, Robyn, for coming on the show today and sharing with us some, I think, major health advice. Go to learntruehealth.com/EMF to get Robyn's free guide. I'm really excited to hear back from the listeners, to know what you think. Please comment in the Facebook group, Learn True Health Facebook group, and let us know what you think about this as you implement Robyn's actionable steps to lowering your EMF. Robyn, thank you so much for coming on the show again, and I can't wait to have you back when you're ready to share with us how to mitigate 5G when it starts to infiltrate our neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and it's an honor to speak to you and to your audience, Ashley. Thanks for having me.
Hello, True Health Seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or IIN, and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach, and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, in the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people, because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author, you can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, mention my name, get the best deal. Give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people. Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic True Health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.